We turn now to a new advocate for Arizona teachers. Randy Parraz made a name for himself by helping take down a man considered the most powerful politician in the state. Republican Russell Pearce's recall in 2011 was a seismic event in Arizona politics. Now Randy Parraz is embarking on a new mission as executive director of the Arizona Education Association, the state's largest teachers union. Welcome back to Square Off.
Thank you. Great to be with you this morning.
So I've covered this union for a long time. You are the first executive director I've ever spoken to, but you're also a different one. You've been a political and labor organizer. You've run for office yourself. So why did the AEA pick you, and why now?
It's a great question. I think part of the reason why now is that back in September, my family chose to come back to Arizona. We're raising our 4-year-old son. And so we wanted to come back to a place where we had a lot of people that we loved and family members that cared about us. And my mom's suffering from dementia. So we needed a place for support. So we chose to come back for Arizona. So that's kind of why now. Why me? It's more to the leadership of the Arizona Education Association. Not only do we represent teachers, we represent education support professionals, the bus drivers, cafeteria workers, administrative support, in terms of trying all the folks that make the schools run. That's what we represent. I think why me? Maybe because they want to go in a different direction. Part of the genius of the recall was a different framework of understanding power. It wasn't about how do we just take back the legislature. It was about how do we dismantle the anti-immigrant machine. And so part of the thinking and framework I'm trying to bring in with the Arizona Education Association is how do we dismantle the anti-public education machine? What are some of the strategies we need to look at? What are some ways we need to behave and act differently? How do we re-energize our base? How do we get back in the fight, right? Because it's a very toxic and hostile environment right now when it comes to public education.
So tell us a little bit more about that different direction, because the union under its presidents, Joe Thomas, the current president, folks might be more familiar with Joe, it seems to have been pretty aggressive in going after leadership. You don't think they've been aggressive enough?
I'm not saying they haven't been aggressive. I'm talking about different strategies, because despite the past efforts, we're still facing a situation where we have, efforts to dumb down the certifications and qualifications of a teacher, efforts to take vouchers, steal money from public education, put it in the charter school area, act as if they care for minority children, but in fact, there's to pay another teacher to do the work that we could be doing in public schools. Efforts to, gag teachers in terms of what they can say about race, and gender, and ethnicity. Efforts to force teachers to disclose to a parent if a student decides that expresses that they're gay or lesbian, bisexual. Imagine that, last time I checked, that wasn't a crime to be that. And yet now the teacher has to go report that. And then to go further, some of these extreme Republicans are now weaponizing that, saying parents could then go after the school district and the teachers for doing that based on the discipline, ultimately ended in someone being fired just because Jill said she liked Jane instead of Jim. These are just, it's just harassment and undermining of education that needs to stop.
So be specific. What kind of strategies are you talking about here that have not been tried?
Well, at this point, I cannot be specific because, our organization is very democratic. We have our governance side. I'm like the implementer in chief. And so I'm at the table, I'm sharing ideas, but ultimately that's going to be the call of our leadership, what they want to try. They may want to do some of the same things. They may want to do something different. We may want to go more locally, pick certain fights. So those are decisions that will be made internally. And those are decisions, whatever they decide, I'll have some input, but ultimately it's our governance side. We're very democratic. We have hundreds of presidents, executive board members. We have a board member itself that runs the AEA, but also we're very local. We have over 100 locals around the state where that power, it's very decentralized, and they make a lot of decisions about the decision we go. So my thing is trying to bring a different perspective, ideas, creativity, and ultimately the governance side will make those decisions.
So you were known during the Pearce campaign, and you said one of the successes was bringing together people who didn't agree on a lot of things, unlikely allies. Is that one strategy you would use with the teachers union or recommend?
Absolutely. We know for a fact there are Republicans in the state who love public education, who are products of public education, who send their kids to public education. And right now there's a handful of extreme Republicans who are getting in the way. So, for example, on the aggregated expenditure on the ballot, there's over $1 billion waiting to be cleared, approved to be funded. Right, should just take place, and it's being held hostage by a handful of Republicans. The House already did their work, and that includes some Republicans. And don't diminish the Democrats all coming together. The Democrats are very diverse. Everyone doesn't think alike, so they're all together. We got some other Republicans doing the right thing in education, and now we got some extreme Republicans holding it up, trying to cut their own deals, right? And when you do that, you cause tremendous amount of stress and anxiety for teachers and support professionals who sometimes live paycheck to paycheck. And you can use some fancy language like a RIF, they're gonna get fired. They're gonna lose their job. People gotta figure out how they're gonna make their ends meet because these guys are playing politics, these extremisms. So there's gotta be some consequences for that. What they are at this point, I can't disclose, but we'll have some conversations. We gotta change the power dynamic of what's taking place. We should not be up there with this harassment and undermining, harassment of teachers and school, classroom, undermining of public education for the dollar part, that needs to stop. There should be the legislation should be a natural ally of teachers, of education support people, professionals. It should be a natural that they should be vested in creating the best public system. We shouldn't be bottom 5 or bottom 10. We should be top 5, at least top 25. I mean, we need to set a new standard for what excellence means in education when it comes to legislators and how they fund it and how we move forward.
I want to ask you a question about the organizing piece of your background. And one of the things I've been wondering about is union membership. We've heard a lot about teachers leaving the profession during the pandemic, uncertified teachers taking their place. How is union membership, the numbers for the AEA? Is it falling?
If you look at over the last decade, it's been somewhat stagnant. There's been increases and coming down different times. There could be a small decrease going now. So, but the institution, the union as a whole is solid. I mean, in terms of our core group of members who support us and advocate for us and out there doing the work of bettering education for all the children and the parents who send their kids there.
So union membership is not growing. Union membership is not growing.
Power so we can stop and dismantle this anti-public education machine.
So union membership has not been growing even as the school populations grow.
It's been steady. We've had some upticks and downticks, but for the most part, it's been steady.
I want to end on Prop 208. There is another initiative planned in the fall to reinstate what voters did back in 2020. Looks like a court any day will toss out what voters did, the Prop 208 that voters approved in 2020. Is this a good time to go back to voters during midterms when Republicans are fired up, Democratic turnout is relatively low? Prop 208 was only approved by 3 percentage points back in 2020. Is this a good time to go back to the polls with it?
I think bottom line is democracy. We got to trust voters, right? We got to educate them. The problem is a lot of times our voters aren't sure what's happening, what's taking place, and who their even representative is. That's why we're going back to the Capitol on Monday to put pressure on the Senate to say, look, the House did their job on releasing the $1 billion for public education. Now you do your job. So we'll be gathering there at 11 o'clock at the Capitol tomorrow on Monday to make this happen.
All right, Randy Parraz, got to end it there. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.